Tell us who you are and where you're from, a bit more about you.
My name is Tom Caulker, and I was born in Bensham in the 60s, and I've lived in and around Newcastle all my life. My contribution to the city has been that I ran the Trent House Bar on Leazes Lane for about 25 years, and I've run World Headquarters Club in the city centre for about 30 years. And my vibe has always been sort of racial inclusion, trying to be a good example to other people and to inspire young people, and to try and move the city forward by focusing on putting good stuff in the heads of the next generation, you know. So it's nice music, it's not slack music, it's positive, multiracial vibe. That's what I'm all about, and that's what I've always been about, and that's been my life's work.
Describe your identity.
My identity is that I am. My identity isn't complicated. It's very, very simple, but it's made up of a lot of things. Going way back, I am a great ape. You know, like the gorillas and the orangutans. I'm conscious of that. I don't think that humans are some separate entity. I think that all of ecology is linked. So I see myself as that. I see myself as a black man. I'm Afro-Irish. My mother was from Ireland and my dad was from Sierra Leone. So I'm Afro-Irish, and I live in England, and I'm a Geordie, so I'm a lot of things, you know. But my allegiance is really to nature and the planet.
What makes you proud to be black?
Oh, all sorts of stuff makes me proud to be black, you know. The great heroes that inspired me when I was a child, people like Dr. King, Muhammad Ali, Aretha Franklin, Clara Ward. You know, a lot of musical people really inspire me, because I spend a great deal of my time involved in music, because that's how I make my living and what I enjoy. So I have a lot of I'm one of those black people who knows quite a bit about black history, and I know who people are, and I know what they've done, and I know who recorded what, and I know what they went through to do that. So I take great inspiration from the struggle of others, and I'm very conscious of the fact that I stand on the shoulders of the people who've gone before me, and I have a responsibility to them to conduct myself in a way whereby they wouldn't think I was an idiot or that I'd given up on the struggle, you know, because I will never do that, you know. I always want to make sure that everything I do, I want to try and bring people together, because I'm part of a lineage that stretches right back to, you know, way into the past, you know, of people, black people trying to make their way in what is effectively a white patriarchal society and trying to change it so it's better for minorities, it's better for women, it's better for gay people, it's better for black people. And you know, I have a responsibility to continue to do that, and to always focus on making sure that things I do can't be misinterpreted as just being slack. Because the media would love it if you know, all black people just played sport, but that's not the way it's going to be. We can do all kinds of stuff. We could be successful businessmen as well, you know. So I think it's important that is what I represent.
You also mentioned you were born in Bensham, grew up in Newcastle. What makes you proud to be a Geordie?
Well, I've lived in Newcastle my whole life, and born in Bensham, lived in my whole life, and I've had the option to move away. I nearly moved to America at one point. I've spent a lot of time in Amsterdam as a child, going over backwards and forwards. But I've always loved Newcastle. I just like it. I like the size of it. I like the fact that everybody knows everybody. If I don't know you, then I know someone who knows you. You know, it's like that. And you know, the coast is, you know, half an hour bike ride away. The countryside is half an hour bike ride away. The beaches are beautiful. And there is a warmth here that I think comes from the fact that Newcastle is a bit isolated. It's not like Manchester and Leeds that all sort of merge into each other. And, you know, in Newcastle, you know, you're sort of cut off a little bit from the south and from what people call the north. People in Manchester call the north. We really are the north, you know. And I think we've evolved slightly differently. And, you know, with the collapse of heavy industry over the last sort of century, we've had to be really resilient. And there is a warmth in a lot of Newcastle people that I really feel. And I'm one of those people who is warm and friendly. I'm one of those friendly Geordies, you know.
Great. You touched upon some of your heroes. You mentioned Dr. Martin Luther King and Muhammad Ali. Tell us more about who your heroes were growing up and why. A bit more on that.
My heroes growing up and why? Well, my heroes were... My hero was Muhammad Ali. Because, you know, when I was growing up as a child, as a sort of black child in the comprehensive system of the 70s, you know, there weren't any sort of... If you never saw anybody black on TV very much, you know, apart from that woman off Star Trek, and then it sort of dawned on me halfway through when I was, you know, you'd watch Top of the Pops and you'd see, like, you know, the Isley Brothers, The Real Thing, some of these acts you would see, Donna, somebody, hang on a minute, hey, we're making all the best records here. And yeah, so I really gravitated towards music because in music, a strong black identity was accepted. Whereas in you didn't know any black businessmen, you didn't know any black business women, but in music there was something, so I gravitated towards music, and music totally enveloped me, especially black music. And as you can probably see, I'm quite a manic collector of rare black music, and that's where I sort of positioned myself, because that was what gave me the counterpoint to the massive amount of racism I had to go through as a child and as a young man and as a man today, right the way through. Music is the thing that gives me that, okay, let's go in music and get some perspective here, so music is my anchor.
What does Black History Month mean to you?
Black History Month to me is something which I'm pleased happens, but Black History Month is Black History lifetime for me, really. I'm in it all the time. That's what I'm interested in. If you look at my Instagram feed and the people I follow and things like that, it's all black stuff, because that's what I'm interested in. I like the idea of Black History Month, but I also think it can become a little bit tokeny. Like I had one of the major local newspapers ring me up the other day and go, "Hi Tommy, can you talk about Black History Month?" And I thought, well, what they're trying to do is they're trying to sort of roll out me as sort of rent-a-black. I thought, well, I'm not going to do that. I said, no, I'm not going to speak to you about Black History Month. Go and find someone else's story, I'm quite high profile black person. You always speak to me. Speak to some other people. Actually, do your work and get out there and meet some people and, do more of this. It's Black History Month, we'll ring Tommy, we'll be all right. I didn't want to do that. So I think it can be tokenistic. And it is a good thing and I do support it, but I think that it's important that people in this country realise that black history is something which was never taught in schools. The role of black people in society, the inventions we've made, our contribution to society, Western society, is greatly undervalued and erased from history. And Black History Month is a sort of here's your Black History Month, you're all right, you got your Black History Month, what are you complaining about, Well, I'm complaining about the fact that it's white history 12 months, I'd like to see it be a bit more universal, human history, rather than the way it was taught to me at school.
What happened in America with George Floyd and the horrible thing that happened, how do you think things have changed since then, since BLM, better or worse for the BAME community?
I think that people have become more aware. What the George Floyd thing did was it made white people realise, for once, what they actually saw up close and could see a man being effectively lynched in front of their very eyes, and they realised they weren't okay with that because they could see it up close. So I think it heightened awareness, and it made a lot of white people feel like they weren't cool with that. They felt more, they saw the humanity of it. So I think it had although it was a terrible act, I think it had a positive effect in waking up a lot of people, and certainly a lot of young people became a lot more politicised and a lot more on side with the situation of black people. But I think as well, it's one of those things whereby, social media, you get all the people who think, oh, well, this is our chance to run it down, George Floyd, and run it down. So it's a double balance. It's a balance, I think it raised awareness, but it also brought the trolls out, It was a very stressful time. Being on social media and that around the time of George Floyd, all these idiots chipping in with their all lives matter waffle and that, and totally just trying to devalue the point and keep you down, and that old school thing of yeah, just take this Negro, go away, that sort of attitude was very, very prevalent on social media. But like I say, on the other side of the coin, it politicised and awoke a lot of people who just said, hey, this isn't okay, And for that, I'm thankful.
You mentioned about growing up in Newcastle. Tell us more about that. What was it like for you growing up in Newcastle?
Growing up it was Gateshead. I grew up in Gateshead. I went to comprehensive in Gateshead, and I left home at 16 with 2 pence and moved to Newcastle. So I've always been around the area, and it was very, very tough when I was a kid. The only sort of black people in my school was me and my brothers. Then my brothers went to boarding school, so I was on my own. And I think there was one Asian girl as well. But you know, so you got a lot of racial abuse all the time. And you kind of learn to live with it and deal with it, but it really had a negative effect on you. And if it wasn't for the likes of Muhammad Ali giving me role models to look up to and, you know, feel something, I was very influenced by America, but people like Malcolm X, you know, influenced me greatly, just seeing black people stand up and speak for themselves. And I thought, yeah, that's where I'm going to be at, you know? And that sort of moved me more in that direction. So it was very, 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 very hard racially growing up. And then once I grew up and I took over the Trent house, it was very hard racially again because everybody put me windows out and, you know, called me racial slurs. And, you know, and then you keep on going. And then only a few years ago, within the last 5 years, the police kicked my door in, you know, for absolutely no reason. They had the wrong address, you know, brutalised me and then just wouldn't, you put a complaint and it goes absolutely nowhere. So racism hasn't gone away. It's still here. It's institutionalised. Institutions like the police, it's institutionally there. And as a black man, any black man, you come in touch with it. It touches on you every now and again. You're like, oh, not that again. Jesus. No matter how hard you work to try and make things better, there are some big things that really need to change, you know, and they will affect you.
Yeah.
And Black History Month ain't going to change that. You know, we need some political upheaval in this country, I think. That's what I think. You know, we need a change of outlook.
Are there any incidents that you can, you know, vividly remember and what effect that had on you?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember, I mean, it's not in Newcastle, but I remember an incident when I was running a club up in Edinburgh where I was very nearly killed by a mob of football casuals in the 80s, 89, when I was running a club up there, and they tried to drag me out of the club and sort of beat me to death type of thing. And I was able to escape only because there was like sort of double leaf doors, and the people who were with me were able to try and push the door shut with this big mob outside and smash all the guys' fingers with pickaxe handles. Otherwise, I would have been killed or severely disabled now. You know, so that was a rather awakening racial moment. You know, people all shouting, you know, the N-word and kill him, and all that sort of stuff. And when you get the doors shut, you're like, hang on a minute, I'm trying to run a nightclub here and play black music, and because of that, this mob of white people want to kill me. It's really, really affected me greatly, and was one of the things that inspired me to get my own nightclub world headquarters. Because I thought, well, if I'm going to stay in this game, I have to get the point whereby I run everything. I run the security and everything, because just coming and playing clubs isn't enough, you know. So it was a real awakener for me.
Yeah, wow, that must have been a very scary moment. So they actually set out to attack you because you were black DJ playing black music.
Yeah. And you know, I was going with a team of black people, you know, we were all up there doing our thing, and, you know, they didn't want us up there, you know. And that was the 80s, you know, but I mean, but the 80s was crazy. You know, it was good. Things have changed since the 80s, obviously. You know, I don't think Edinburgh's like that now. In fact, I promote live shows up in Edinburgh now, and it couldn't be nicer to me up there now. So things have changed up there. I think they probably locked them all up, all the soccer casuals back in the day.
Were you fearful every time you played in nightclubs after that?
Well, I mean, the same thing was happening down here. You know, there was a lot of racism down here. You know, from door staff. Because I've always worked in clubs, from door staff, especially from the police. You know, and you didn't feel like you were part of the society, which is why I got my own club and sort of effectively built my own little society. You know, with World Headquarters. And now, because we've kept that going, we now kind of affect positively generations of young people to have a more diverse, inclusive point of view, which didn't exist when I set out to do it, you know. So over the 30 years of World Headquarters, I've gone from, you know, nearly being lynched to, you know, sitting on the board of the university, you know. So things have changed, you know. Yeah. Things have really changed, you know. And it's been a long journey for me, and although I have progressed to the point whereby now I'm fairly secure in myself and secure in my identity, I still feel and I still appreciate there are people who today are getting, you know, dog feces put through the letterbox in areas of the city, and people being racially abused, and I'm still with them. You know, just because it isn't happening to me right now doesn't mean I forget that it happens to other people. Yeah. And it's important that I remain part of the struggle to make this city a fairer and more inclusive and diverse place. And I will always do that.
It's brilliant. I'm just going to go back slightly. You mentioned you left Gateshead at the age of 16 to go to Newcastle. Why?
Because I had a big row with my dad and I left home.
Right.
just wanted to do my own thing. So I came over here at 16 and just hustled and worked in bars, restaurants, this, that and the other, did this, that and the other, until I ended up working at and collecting records all the time as well. And then I ended up working at the Trent, and then from the Trent, I eventually took over the lease of the Trent, and then that went on, and I got involved in clubs and took over the clubs. So I just sort of followed I think the best way to describe it is it's quite a funny way. It says it on our website that when I was a kid, I didn't really fancy what other people did. So I just shot my arrow up in the air and drew a target around where it landed. And that's still, I'm sitting right in the middle of that target now.
Wow.
You know?
Obviously, there was some very scary times about growing up and facing racism. I want to try and get to the other side. What was the best thing about growing up?
Best thing about growing up was Northern Soul music, no doubt about it. In the room next door, I've got my Northern Soul collection, which is my pride and joy. And my love of the 3-minute soul record, sort of black soul music, was the thing that really kept me going as a kid, you know. The Northern Soul scene and collecting records and being into that. And that was the most positive black influence, or one of the most positive black influences I've ever had in my life. Growing up as well, another really positive black influence was the arrival of Public Enemy, the rap act Public Enemy. When Public Enemy came, landed like out of nowhere, they just blew my mind. And the whole link to their take on black politics and presenting themselves in a really positive light and a really strong light really influenced me. And I follow them all around the country with them on tour, and they still have a lasting effect on me now. And they've really been an anchor, a musical anchor, in helping me really focus myself on who I want to be and defining my own identity.
I'm going to flip this now. Have you ever felt like you've never belonged here?
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I felt like that all the time at school. You felt that all of the time, and I don't want to dwell on it, but more recently, encounters with the police will make you feel like you don't belong here. When the police, I've had some really, really bad encounters with the police, when I've done nothing wrong. I've had the police, stand up and lie about me in court and try and shut my business down and all sorts of stuff, simply because of the colour of my skin. They don't do it to other people, but they'll do it to me. And and that kind of thing really makes you feel like you don't belong. But it also strengthens your resolve to make a stand against that and make sure that where you can stop that kind of abuse of power, you will do so. You have to be prepared to stand up, otherwise things will never change. So every time I get knocked, it just makes me want to stand up more. Even though it makes me feel like I don't belong, I process it and it makes you want to stand up more,
How's Newcastle now compared to when you were growing up? Would you say it's more tolerant? Is it more inclusive, less racist?
Yes, it wouldn't really be hard for it to be less racist than when I was growing up. To be honest, that wouldn't be very difficult. So things have improved. Things still have a very long way to go. And we have taken significant steps backwards. But it's not so much because of Newcastle, it's because of the rise of Donald Trump, the rise of fake news, the rise of Boris Johnson, the whole Brexit thing, that whole little England mentality, which makes the Tories loads of dough, but doesn't actually help the British people at all. But they haven't quite worked that out yet. So that we've taken a few steps back, but we are a more tolerant city than we were. I think that there have been pillars of Newcastle. For example, that the influence of the trade union movement in the city, that has always been strongly anti-racist. And anything I've been doing when I've needed support from a trade union, like when we put on the Unity Festival, they've been right there. They stand right beside us. So those sort of influences in the city, and the fact that it's a working class city, and most working class people, whatever colour you are, if you're working class, you're working class. And you're people who work, and it's the divisiveness has been dropped in from the people on high who want to control us. Really, the average person in Newcastle is pretty accepting, I think that the vocal minority of your sort of right-wing idiots will taint the conversation, but really, I've found the majority of the people in Newcastle to be really, really nice people. Same with the police. The majority of police officers in Newcastle are really nice people, but the few that aren't are the ones that taint the whole thing, So we've still got a way to go, but things are a lot better than they were when I was a kid. A hell of a lot better. If you look now at if when I went to school, I was the only black kid in school. And my girlfriend has a mixed race daughter, and she goes to a local school, and it's packed full of kids, but kids of every racial combination you could want at that school. So things have changed, and as the demographic changes, and second generation immigrants and people from all cultures coming into the city becomes more of a melting pot, and that is in the next generation, and that's where I focus my efforts with the club. People who are coming through, that's where the real change will happen. And people like my girlfriend's daughter, they're not having any racism, they're not having it. Because they've got a really wide, broad, multicultural mix of friends. And so the next generation are hopefully going to be the one that saves us,
Yeah. If there was one thing you could do to make the world a better place, vanish all racism, what would it be?
I would immediately, with immediate effect, sack all male politicians, all male company directors, all males in any position of power. I would say, you've had your run at it, step down, and I would install women in those positions. So you'd have a woman Prime Minister, a woman Chief of Police, a woman this, a woman that, a woman Company Director, and all the big positions of power. Mark Zuckerberg, step down, woman. And I would just change it immediately so that women were in charge and men weren't anymore. Because I think that would be a radical move. It's a very hypothetical move, but it's what I would do, because I think that women in general have I think it's maybe because they actually give birth to children. They understand more, and they don't do the sort of male chimpanzee bravado game that gets us in so much trouble, with wars and stupid policies. We need people who actually understand what a family is to be in charge of a nation of families. And I think men have had a good run at it, and I think they've messed it up. I think if you put any big group of men in charge of anything long enough, they'll mess it up and start fighting with each other. So that's what I would do. And I think the knock-on effect of that would be that racism would reduce, sexism would reduce, squandering money on ludicrous things would reduce. Big businesses would end up getting taxed. Working people would have more money. I think if women were in charge, there's a good chance that in 50 years' time, we would have saved the planet.
I know there'll be people watching this who will be facing racism, be facing prejudice and all sorts of bias, and don't know how to deal with it. What would your message be to people who are going through this?
My message would be stand firm. Whatever you're going through, believe me, there's people who've been through worse than what you're going through now. And that's not to undermine the experiences you're having, but you will get through this. There are people you can depend on. If you're having and you want a friend, go on the World Culture website, email me, I'll be your friend. There are groups like Show Racism, the Red Card, like I say, the trade union movement. There are loads of people in this city who care about you and how you feel. And you are not alone. You might seem like that, but you're not alone, and you will get through it. You will get through it. I know it's easy for me to say you will get through it, but you will. You haven't got to back down. I'd love to be able to say, ring the police and they'll help you, but I can't say that in all good conscience, because I don't know if they will. But ring them anyway, and rely on your friends and believe in yourself, I suppose. Believe in yourself, that if someone says, oh, you're black, you're Asian, you don't belong, of course you belong. You belong, right? You belong more than anyone. We're all citizens of the planet, Just because you live in a country where some people have a messed up idea based on generations of colonialism, that doesn't mean it's the whole country. There's a lot of people in this country who understand and who see. It's just that you hear from that vocal minority of racists and right-wingers, There's a lot of us who are just ordinary working people from families who appreciate humanity. So you are not alone. That's what I would say.